Welcome, everybody. This is going to be my first episode of the channel, and I want us to start off with the endocrine system. So as you can see over here, we have the endocrine system, and this is going to be the topic that counts 34 marks towards your exam in the prelims as well as in the finals. So 34 marks is quite a lot. So we need to make sure that we actually understand the endocrine system, and that's what we will be covering today. So just a bit of background knowledge. We started off with discussing the human nervous system, and I would like to mention the human nervous system as part of the endocrine system and how they actually differ. Okay, so remember from what we've learned in the human nervous system is that it basically consists of the process whereby a stimulus is basically started or generated, and then it goes through the reflex arc. Okay, and the reflex arc can be summarized in this diagram over here, where it starts off with a stimulus, and then it eventually goes on to the receptor, the sensory neuron, and the central nervous system, all the way to the motor neuron effector, and then response. Okay, so basically it starts off with a stimulus, which is something that is external to the body, which the body can then sense, and then the receptor cells are going to basically sense the stimulus, and then it's going to transmit the impulse from the sensory neuron all the way down to the central nervous system, to the motor neuron, and then the effector organs. Okay, so that could be anything like the skeletal muscles or anything that would aid in generating a response, which is going to be the last process. All right, so how does that differ from what we are going to be looking at today? So we have the endocrine system, and as you can see, the endocrine system has what I wanted to say is that the human nervous system, it's a transmission of impulses, right? To generate a response that's normally very quick, right? It happens almost instantaneously, right? However, this process it's short-lived, okay? This process is short-lived because it's a process that happens instantaneously and very quickly, okay? And that's very important because in order for your body to protect itself, it's going to try to respond to a situation as quickly as possible. So it'll go through this whole reflex arc very quickly. So unlike the human nervous system, the endocrine system has a slow response that is actually long-lived, okay? So it is long-lived, and as the endocrine glands produce and release specific hormones into the bloodstream. So very important, the word endo means within, all right, or inside, okay? So anything, so we need to address that endocrine is, endo means inside, and then crine comes from the word, it comes from a Greek word, which I don't remember, but it basically means to separate or to basically secrete, okay? Secrete. And that's going to be a term that is going to be used often. So stay away from words like produce, okay? So we're going to rather stick to the word secrete, because glands are what actually secretes a certain substance or a certain hormone, which we'll be looking at in more detail. Okay, so as the endocrine glands produce and release specific hormones into the bloodstream, so endocrine will be hormones that are going to be secreted directly into the bloodstream. So this is an internal process that happens within the body, and therefore we call it endo, inside, and crine, which comes from the word secrete, right? So then eventually an effector organ, so an effector organ can be any organ which often acts as a gland that will secrete basically a substance or a hormone. Okay, so that's what we refer to as the effector organ, that will secrete a certain substance or hormone. Okay, and then after that, a response will then be initiated. Okay, and that's also the body's way of protecting itself, so that a response can be generated. Only in this process, the response is long-lived and it's much slower. Okay, because you are dealing with secretions here. So when endocrine organs are either over or under stimulated, endocrine disorders are observed. Okay, so we are going to be looking at a process called homeostasis, okay, which we'll look in the next video. But basically, homeostasis is the process whereby a balance within the internal environment of the body is maintained, okay, so that there's no disorders that will basically occur, because the endocrine system consists of glands that secrete the right amount of hormones or the right amount of substances, and so there's no over secretion or under secretion of glands. That's not supposed to happen, but there are disorders where it actually does happen, and we're going to look at that in a later video, the next video, when we're looking at homeostasis. Okay, so very important that these glands, they serve as organs that will secrete substances in the body in order for the body to basically respond to certain stimuli. Okay, so I hope you guys understand that. And so now we're going to be looking at the endocrine system. Okay, so the endocrine system, it consists of a lot of various glands. Okay, this is various glands, and these glands are specialized in the fact that they can actually secrete substances. Okay, so they can secrete hormones and substances, which are very important for our bodies to protect itself. Okay, so as you can see in this diagram, we have quite a lot of glands and we have quite a lot of organs that will basically secrete certain hormone. So we're going to start off with the hypothalamus. Okay, so the hypothalamus is basically a region within the brain that is right above the pituitary gland, and basically the hypothalamus, from what we've learned in the nervous system, is that it is basically the control center for various processes within the body. So for example, if you're feeling hungry or you're feeling tired, okay, that will be the control center for all those emotions that you are feeling. Okay, and we're going to specifically focus on a hormone that the hypothalamus secretes, which is the antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. And this hormone is going to be crucial for osmoregulation. Okay, so osmoregulation is a process whereby water and salt is going to be regulated within the body. And as you maybe remember from grade 11, we actually did discuss ADH quite a bit in the process of osmoregulation, but we're going to look at it more closely, so that we need to understand what is the function of each hormone and what are our endocrine glands. Okay, so it's very important. Okay, and then we have our pituitary gland. So the pituitary gland is right below the hypothalamus, and I'm gonna show you guys a larger image of that. So basically, it looks more or less like this. It's basically a bilobe structure. So it has an interior lobe and it has a posterior lobe, which we'll look at in more detail towards the end of this video. Okay, so the pituitary gland, another word for the pituitary gland is the hypophysis. Okay, the hypophysis. And so the pituitary gland, or the hypophysis, is responsible for a lot of hormones. So it can secrete quite a lot of hormones. So we have hormones like growth hormone, and then we have hormones like TSH, which is a thyroid stimulating hormone, and we also have hormones like FSH and LH, which should be familiar to you since we did it in the menstrual cycle. So FSH is follicle stimulating hormone, LH is luteinizing hormone, and then we also have prolactin, which we also mentioned in reproduction, especially when we're looking at how breastfeeding occurs, right? So here we have an image here of basically mammary glands that are found in males and females. However, just in males, it's more it has a specific function because females, when they give birth, they need to breastfeed their young. Okay, so mammals, in this case, females, their mammary glands serve as those mammary glands are able to secrete hormones like prolactin, which is a very important hormone that is present within the milk, so that the young can then benefit from it, right? So that is prolactin, and however in males it does not have any specific function, because in males they're not going to be giving any milk to their young. Okay, so they don't reproduce. And then we have the thyroid gland. So the thyroid gland is basically the gland that is located just in the front of our throat, and it's a gland that plays a role in the lymphatic system. So the lymphatic system is basically a system that helps with ensuring that our immune system is runs smoothly, right? So it plays a role in our immune system, and so but the thyroid gland specifically secretes thyroxine. Okay, so thyroxine is another hormone that is very important, and we will discuss later on what are some of the disorders related if there's too much hormones being produced. For example, if there's too much thyroxine produced, then you'll have conditions like hypothyroidism or hypothyroidism. Okay, so hypo and hyper. Okay, so hypo refers to, it's considered to be low, a low secretion or low dose, and then hyper is it's a high secretion, or like we can actually even say that it's low is under secretion, and then high is over secretion. If there's an over secretion of this type of hormone, then it can lead to conditions such as hyperthyroidism. Okay, and then it can also lead to a hypothyroidism. Okay, so yeah, we'll look at that later on as one of the disorders when there's an oversecretion of hormones, all right, and then how it affects the body, and that's not what we want to be in a situation. We will always want balance or homeostasis to be like a repeatable occurrence. Okay, so so that's the thyroid gland, and we're going to look at it in more detail when we look at homeostasis. And then we have the pancreas. Okay, so the pancreas, the interesting thing about the pancreas is that it is considered to be both an endocrine and an exocrine gland. Okay, and I'm going to explain what is the difference between endocrine as well as exocrine. Okay, so pancreas serves as both. Okay, it serves as both, and in the pancreas there are two types of cells in the pancreas. So we call that the islets, okay, islets of Langerhans. Okay, so there are two cells in the pancreas that secretes what we call glucagon, and then it also secretes what we call insulin. Okay, so these two hormones glucagon will be secreted by a cell in the pancreas called a beta cells. Okay, beta cells. Okay, and then insulin, it will be alpha cells that are secreted. Alpha cells will secrete insulin. Okay, and I'll explain the relationship between the two. So for now, we need to understand that the pancreas acts as both an exocrine as well as an endocrine gland. Okay, and then we have the adrenal gland. Now, the adrenal gland is located right on top of the kidneys, as you can see over there as well. All right, so it's like these triangular structures that are present on the adrenal gland, and adrenaline and aldosterone is going to be the hormones that we're going to focus on. Adrenaline, which is a hormone that is specifically that gets secreted when you are in a fight or flight situation. Okay, so think of you approaching a dog, or a dog is approaching you, and it's a very violent and dangerous dog, and then now you start to panic and you don't know what to do, and then this hormone will then start to be secreted through the adrenal gland. Okay, from the adrenal gland, and it's going to ensure that your muscles, for example, your heart will now beat faster, all right, and your muscles will contract more. So that's all because of adrenaline, and we're going to look at the function of adrenaline in more detail later on. And then we also have aldosterone, which also plays a role. So aldosterone and ADH work hand in hand. Okay, so they both play a role in the process of osmoregulation, basically regulating the amount of water and salts that are in your body, right? So aldosterone specifically refers to the salt balance. Okay, the salt balance, and we'll also look at that later on. Okay, and then we have the reproductive organs. So we'll have our ovaries, and our ovaries, the two main hormones that are produced by the ovaries is estrogen and progesterone. And then we also have the testes. Okay, and the testes will basically produce testosterone, or it will produce testosterone, and it is a hormone that's very important for developing secondary sexual characteristics. Okay, all right, so this is basically an overview of all the glands, and so now we're going to be looking at what are their functions, and also we need to be able to distinguish between the two types of glands. All right, so exo is outside, right? So if endo is inside, then exo means outside, and it's also crine. So crine also means secretions, and exo. So what is the difference between the two types of glands? Okay, so this is going to be very important. This is within your exam guideline. So exocrine glands versus endocrine glands. Okay, so exocrine glands have what we call ducts. Okay, so ducts, think of ducts are basically organs that act as glands. So think, for example, of a sweat glands, right, or salivary glands. So the key difference between the two is that, okay, exocrine glands, they have ducts. Endocrine glands don't have ducts. Okay, they are ductless, and the main difference is that exocrine glands, they have secretions that the secretions released into a cavity or on a surface. So basically, the surface of your body tissues, that's where the substance will be secreted. Okay, so it's going to be outside of the bloodstream, whereas the endocrine glands, the hormones are released into the into the bloodstream. Okay, so this will be directly into the bloodstream, and exocrine glands will have substances or hormones that are released outside of the body tissues, all right, or on the surface of the body tissues. So this is a very important distinction, as you guys can be asked on what's the difference between the two. Okay, so examples of exocrine glands are salivary glands, sweat glands. We also have what we call, you can also have sperm ducts. Okay, sperm ducts, because ducts will basically release sperm, so it can serve as an exocrine gland. Okay, and then examples for endocrine glands is your pituitary gland. So the pituitary gland can secrete basically it can secrete ADH. Well, not necessarily, because we just noticed that the hypothalamus is the hormone that is responsible for secreting antidiuretic hormone. But nonetheless, it also has your thyroid gland is able to produce thyroid stimulating hormone, and the pancreas is also is able to produce insulin. However, we said that the pancreas is both an endocrine as well as a exocrine gland. Okay, so in this case, it can secrete hormones like insulin and glucagon, and it can also act as a exocrine gland. So think of the fact that the pancreas secretes but basically pancreatic juices. If you look at the digestive system, right? The digestive system involves the pancreas, and the pancreas is going to release pancreatic juices that contains digestive enzymes that will basically aid in the process of digestion, especially in the stomach. All right, so it's going to churn and break down the food with the help of the pancreatic juices that are secreted by the pancreas. Okay, so that obviously is not it's not secreted within the bloodstream, but rather outside onto the surface of the body tissues. Okay, so, and that would be in the stomach. All right, so it kind of makes sense that pancreas serves as both an endocrine as well as a exocrine gland. So these are just examples, but obviously there are many more, and I would like us to focus our attention on the secretions that you see over here. So this is an example of an exocrine gland. Okay, so can you see here we have the skin surface, right? Or we can also refer to it as the body tissues, all right? Which is made up of various types of tissues such as epithelium, canal epithelium, etc. And can you see the chemical? So they will release certain chemicals, or they'll release certain substances that will then land onto the body tissues, right? So for example, like sweat glands. So sweat glands, if water needs to get lost, which is basically what the purpose of the function of the sweat glands is to ensure that water gets lost by means of sweat, right? And then sweat will basically get secreted onto the surface of the skin and via evaporation, right? As a means to basically cool off the body, and that refers to the process of thermoregulation, which we'll look at in more detail, which focuses on basically how our bodies are able to regulate heat. Okay, and then we also have the endocrine glands. So here's a diagram over here. So can you see here, these tissues over here can basically is representative of the organs, the target organs or the glands that will basically secrete hormones directly into the blood or into the blood vessels. All right, so it's going to form part of the blood plasma inside the blood vessels. Okay, and then they're going to basically they will perform their function. So it can be any of these hormones that we've mentioned, and many others. Okay, all right, so So this is something that is very key for us to remember. We need to know what is the difference between an exocrine and an endocrine gland. Okay. Right. So here we're going to focus more on the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. So the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, they are very close to each other. So as you can see over here, we have the hypothalamus right over there. And then we also have the pituitary gland right beneath the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland are connected. Okay. And they play very important functions such as controlling vital functions in the human body. So we're going to be looking at how does the hypothalamus in relation to how it actually secretes ADH. So it secretes ADH, all right? So ADH is antidiuretic hormone, and it's basically going to be secreted by the hypothalamus, okay? And then we have a pituitary gland, which will secrete a large amount of hormones such as FSH, which we looked at already, okay? FSH, LH, prolactin, etc., okay? So this is just a detailed view of it, right? So can you see there we have the hypothalamus, and then we also have the pituitary gland, which consists of an anterior lobe. So anterior means front, okay? Anterior means front, and posterior means back, okay? So the back lobe. Okay, so it's a bilobe structure, two lobes that are one in front and one at the back. So that's the structure of it. And then obviously we have the rest of the brain, which consists of the cerebrum. So the cerebrum controls various voluntary actions, and then the cerebellum also controls a lot of voluntary actions, such as fine motor skills. For example, you able to flex or move your hand or your muscles. So it's coordinated movement. It basically helps with coordinated movement, right? So any movement that requires practice or skill, that will be facilitated by the cerebellum. Okay, so the cerebrum is more to do with your memory. It's more to do with memory. So for example, if you need to memorize something, then you will basically be using your cerebrum, for example. Okay, so but both of them are considered to be, they control voluntary responses. Okay. So but that's something that we learned back in the human nervous system, right? But here we're going to focus on the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland in more detail, okay? But this is the structure of it. Okay, so now we're going to come to our hormones and their functions, okay? So as we can see over here, before we actually engage, what I would like you to do is you can play a little mind game with yourself. So you can pause the video and think for yourself, what is the names of each of the glands or organs that I have here, right? What are their names? And then what is the hormones that they will basically be secreting, okay? And also what are the functions of those hormones, okay? So before I'm going to get into it, make a nice summary for yourself by first identifying what organ are we looking at here, and basically what hormone is produced by each organ or secreted by each organ, and what is the function of the hormone, okay? So that can be a nice activity for yourself so that you can familiarize with all these glands, okay? So yeah, but I'm gonna go through them, and then yeah, we're gonna do some short activity right at the end. Yeah, just to wrap things up. And in the later video, I'm gonna work out past papers that basically focuses on this whole topic. All right. So so let's start off with the very first diagram over here. So I hope you guys figured it out. Here we are looking at the pituitary gland. Okay. So the pituitary gland, or another word for the pituitary gland is the hypophysis. Okay. I don't necessarily like the term hypophysis because it's often very difficult to, learners often find it very difficult to spell it because that's how it's spelled. So, and I don't want us to spell the incorrect term or have any of those issues. So it's better to know but pituitary, such as pituitary gland. But also, you won't be penalized if you write hypophysis as long as it is correct. Okay. So this is the hypophysis. It's the bilobe structure that we just looked at. So it consists of an interior and a posterior lobe. Okay. And then we have now we all recognize this structure. This is the kidney. Okay. The kidney. And I'll explain what the kidney is all about. So the kidney, it involves the hormone ADH, okay, which is an antidiuretic hormone. Okay, so ADH is produced by the hypothalamus. Okay, the hypothalamus. And ADH is an antidiuretic hormone. Okay, so always, if you want to remember what does the word ADH mean, or antidiuretic? Antidiuretic just means that it's the body's way of trying to retain water to prevent basically excess water loss. Okay, so that's why we refer to it as antidiuretic hormone. If you just take out the anti, then diuretic means basically losing water. Diuretic means losing water. So basically, if you want to lose water, which is something that basically bodybuilders do quite often, is that when they need to go perform or walk on stage, they will then deprive themselves of water, or basically deplete their system of water, so that you can see the definition within their bodies, how their bodies look like, so you can see all the muscles. So sometimes they also drink like coffee, so that you can, because coffee has caffeine that further dehydrates you, right? Obviously, yeah, it's a very interesting sport, and yeah, a lot of things need to be monitored, right? So ADH is when your body wants to conserve water, and the kidneys are going to play a key role there. So if you remember from last year in grade 11, we looked at basically the structure of the kidney, but then we also looked at what is found inside the kidney. We have the nephrons. The nephrons consist of the glomerulus that acts as a filter so that it doesn't take in unwanted big substances like proteins and glucose molecules and all that, right? So basically, it's the nephron then will act as a filtration system to ensure that the necessary all the nitrogenous waste, such as creatinine, urea, uric acid, will be released or excreted as part of the urine, right? So ADH will ensure that all the water, right, or all the solids that your body will still need, or the ions that your body will still need, will be reabsorbed back into the bloodstream, so that you don't lose as much water, right? So often in your urine, you will only be excreting what the body does not want. Okay, so, but if the body needs more water, then water will then be reabsorbed. Okay, so that refers to the process of, so remember we first had in the process of filtration, we first have filtration. Okay, and then we have reabsorption. So all the ions that the body will need will be reabsorbed. Okay, so that is reabsorption. And then we have the last process would then obviously be excretion. Okay, so then it gets rid of the nitrogenous waste. Okay, so that's so ADH will ensure that reabsorption will take place. Okay, reabsorption, that's the main thing that ADH will do, to make sure that your body has the right amount of water, so that you don't end up having like any water or salt imbalances within the body. Okay, and that's something that you don't want. So that is the kidney, and it involves the antidiuretic hormone. Okay, then we have the testes. So the testes are going to produce, they are going to basically produce testosterone. Okay, testosterone. Okay, so that is an O, testosterone. Okay, so testosterone is basically a hormone that is produced in males by the testes, and it will cater for secondary sexual characteristics, right? Like broader shoulders, body hair, and also the development of muscle. Okay, and then here we have muscles over here. And then here we have bones. Okay, bones. So the key hormone here that are going to help with the process of muscles and that are going to help with the growth of muscles and bone is what we call the growth hormone, GH. Okay, and so the growth hormone is also released it's secreted by the pituitary gland as well. Okay, so the growth hormone will help with the growth of muscles and bone. Now we have a disorder such as gigantism, where the bones are basically they are growing beyond the actual size. So that is a disorder. That's a disorder of the oversecretion of growth hormones. Okay, so then but then we also have dwarfism. So then that is for people that their bones are not as well developed and their muscles are also not as well developed. So now that can lead to them looking very tiny. All right, so that's like an undersecretion of the growth hormone. Okay, so yeah, that's the function of the growth hormone. So it helps with the mass, the muscle mass, and it helps with the bone. Okay, the growth of the bone, especially long bones. So and we're going to look at pictures of some of those disorders as well. Then we have the thyroid gland. So this is going to be the thyroid, and the thyroid gland is going to basically produce a hormone called thyroxine. Okay, so thyroxine, so the thyroid gland is going to produce a hormone, it's going to produce a hormone TSH. Okay, well, actually, just do this. Sorry. So okay, so we have the thyroid gland. Apologies there. So the thyroid gland is going to be it's a gland that stimulates the growth of the thyroid gland. Okay, so and what's going to help stimulate the growth of the thyroid gland is it's basically like a thyroid stimulating hormone, which we call TSH. Okay, so thyroid stimulating hormone. Okay, so so thyroid stimulating hormone is basically, it's self-explanatory, because this hormone is going to be important for stimulating the growth of the thyroid gland. Okay, and the thyroid gland will then secrete the hormone thyroxine. Okay, thyroxine. It's going to secrete the hormone thyroxine. Okay, so, but TSH is not produced by the thyroid gland, but it's also produced by the pituitary gland. Okay, so the pituitary gland will also secrete TSH, which is a thyroid stimulating hormone that will basically stimulate the growth of the thyroid gland, and then it will help the thyroid gland to secrete the hormone thyroxine. Okay, so that's the function of the thyroid gland, and it involves the pituitary gland as well. Okay, so like we said, the pituitary gland secretes a lot of hormones. Yeah, so okay, so that's the thyroid gland. And then we have the mammary gland. Okay, so this is mammary. How do you spell memory? It's not like memory, like you trying to regain your memory, right? It's spelled that way. Mammary glands. And mammary glands, what they do is they stimulate milk production. Okay, so they stimulate the secretion and the production of milk. Okay, that's what they do, and this is with the help of the hormone prolactin. Okay, that's the hormone prolactin. Is going to be it's going to help the mammary glands to secrete milk or produce milk, so that females can take care of the young. Okay, and then we have our ovaries. Okay, so remember what we said, that the pituitary gland secretes hormones such as FSH and LH. Okay, so those are two hormones that are secreted by the pituitary gland. And it's going, so for example, FSH is follicle stimulating hormone. So follicle stimulating hormone is basically going to help stimulate the development or the growth of our ovaries. Okay, so these are our ovaries over here. So they're going to basically mature from primary follicles all the way to mature Graafian follicles, right? So they're going to stimulate FSH is going to stimulate the development of the ovaries, right? Follicle stimulating hormones, the follicles to be more specific. And then we have the luteinizing hormone, and the luteinizing hormone is going to stimulate the maturation or the growth of your female sex cells, which is your ova. Okay, and it's also going to help stimulate ovulation, right? So to make sure that basically ovulation occurs when the Graafian follicles then ruptures during day 14. Okay, yeah. So that's with regards to the ovaries. Yeah. So yeah. We've covered everything. And you guys can make a more detailed mind map similar to this. And then you can I have the notes on, I will send you guys the notes as well. I'll just make a link for it so that you can access them. And then you can use this to summarize basically the hormones and their functions. Okay. Right. So, yeah, I think we covered quite a lot. and I don't want to be here too long. So then what I'll do is okay, let me quickly go over the adrenal glands. All right, so here, can you see the structure of the adrenal glands? Okay, so the adrenal glands, apart from the glands that we mentioned here, there are additional glands, right, that we also have to know. So here we have the adrenal gland, and the adrenal gland is located right on top of the kidney, right? And this is the structure of the adrenal gland. So it contains a capsule, right, which is the outer layer covering that aids for protection of the adrenal glands. And then you have the medullary or a medulla section, which is basically means middle section. And then you also have the cortex, right? So the medulla means like the inner section, rather, sorry. And then we have the cortex over here, and then you have the blood vessels inside the medulla, okay? And then here you have the kidney. So basically the hormones, the main hormones that the adrenal gland will produce is aldosterone, and it will also produce, it will also secrete glands such as the adrenaline, okay? Adrenaline. Okay, so notice that adrenaline is not with an E, it's spelled like that, okay? So don't say adrenaline, or it's just adrenaline. That's how it's spelled, okay? And a nice way to remember is that adrenal glands will secrete a hormone, adrenaline, right? That's how it works. And aldosterone as well. So those are the two hormones that we will be focusing on, and we're going to learn about osmoregulation for aldosterone because they play a role in salt balance, okay? The aldosterone helps with salt balance, and adrenaline helps with it helps with the fight or flight response, okay? Fight or flight response, okay? So that's basically what the adrenal glands are all about. All right, and then we have our reproductive glands. So like I've already mentioned, so the reproductive glands involves the ovaries, and it involves the testes in males. Okay, so this will be males, and then this is obviously females. Okay, so it consists of the ovaries. So we've already mentioned that the ovaries, they help with they produce two types of hormones. Okay, so they produce estrogen and as well as progesterone. Okay, so that's going to be basically produced. The ovaries are going to secrete this type of hormones. Okay, so again, going back to the menstrual cycle, it promotes the thickening of the endometrial wall or the endometrial lining, and it also helps with the development of sexual characteristics. Okay, and then progesterone helps with the vascularization of the endometrial lining, so it becomes thicker. So it's the thickening, so they become more glandular. Right, I can just say glandular there, glandular, and then also they become more vascular. Okay, vascular. So that would be the endometrium. This is referring to the endometrium, and estrogen is basically this. They help secondary sexual characteristics. And also they help with they help to thicken the endometrium. Okay, thickening of the endometrium as well. Okay, so those are the functions of that. And so these two hormones are secreted by our ovaries, right? More specifically our follicles, right? Because remember, but this is just to basically summarize what hormones they produce. Okay, so these are all from the ovaries. Okay, and then we have testosterone. So testosterone, like again, they are produced by the testes. Okay, testosterone, and they help with the male secondary sexual characteristics. Secondary sexual characteristics. Okay. And it helps with the growth of the maturation of the sperm. Okay. Maturation of sperm. Okay. So that's the reproductive glands as well. And here we have an activity. So because of time, you guys can work out this activity yourself. So activity 1 says, endocrine glands and the hormones. The diagram shows some of the human endocrine glands. Name the glands labeled A to G and list the hormones produced by each gland. Okay, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G. What is their hormones? What are the hormones for each gland? Okay, so this can be an exercise that you guys can do. And then activity 2 would be then to answer this question. So number 1 starts with give the name of a hormone A, state the position of the gland that secrete hormone A in the human body, explain the importance of narrowing of arteries to the gut under emergency conditions, name the part of the human eye that is also affected by hormone A, explain the influence of hormone A on the part named in question 4. All right, so just attempt this. And if you guys have any questions, you can drop a comment. Also like this video and subscribe so that it can go out to more people. All right. But yeah, that's all for me from Kalinsky Academy. And I will see you guys in the next video. And I'm going to make a video about past papers where we'll be doing past papers, and then we'll just do them online. Okay. And if you guys have any questions, again, drop a comment. And yeah, that will also help me to understand where you guys are at with regards to the endocrine system and basically everything else. So also let me know what future videos I can make. But yeah, I want to tackle each and every video topic by topic. Okay, so if that is possible. So the next video will be about homeostasis, where we'll delve deeper into how the body actually maintains balance, etc. Okay, so yeah, that's all for Kalinsky Academy. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Okay, thank you.